Prime time local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Well, the Lloydminster Drop-in Centre opened last November and since then has been operating a warm place for people to go during the day. Jasmine King spoke with the manager of the Drop-in Centre on how they've been adjusting to the pandemic.
I'm joined here with Riley Gilroy, and he is the manager of the Lloydminster Drop-in Centre. Now, how has this pandemic really changed the way the Drop-in Centre has been operating?
I think overall, when it comes to the way that we do our business, the way that we work with people, that hasn't changed at all. I think when it comes to the social distancing, the encouragement of using soap while washing hands, basically the common sense that we're just reinforcing. Those are really the only changes that we've been more or less emphasizing around the drop-in center. However, the way that we approach people, the way that we work with people, that hasn't changed at all in terms of our harm reduction-based approach, where we meet people where they're at and overall find out what their needs are and how we can support them through them. That will always be consistent regardless of what our circumstances are.
And you mentioned that you're making sure it's more sanitized and people are using hand sanitizer. Are those probably some of the bigger changes you've really had to make to the usual activities the Drop-in Center offers?
I think overall, we also have a sneeze guard as well to prevent any potential interaction between people and the food that we prepare, where we do breakfast and lunch on the daily. So the sneeze guards prevent any interaction while the food is being prepped and served. I think in terms of hand sanitizer or soap and hot water, they're all basically there to reinforce what we're trying to do to have that safe environment where people don't come and contract it or even perhaps spread the virus here. I think those different measures have been very helpful, and we also use gloves when preparing and serving food, and we also have the option of wearing face masks as well, where it's available to not only the volunteers but towards the community as well.
And have you seen less visitors during this time?
We have actually, for multiple reasons. When we had started in November of 2019, the weather was quite cold, and we more or less did a soft opening to have that daytime space where people can gain that warmth, the shelter, the food, to obtain those basic needs more or less, where we wanted to ensure that that was in place. And now that the weather is shaping up and the city is more or less opening up, where people are able to venture out and enjoy the different sites and scenes in Lloydminster, we do see a drop off during this time, and understandably so. I think people want to explore and feel that freedom that they didn't necessarily have before when the pandemic was at its peak.
Now, the Drop-in Center is actually doing a collaboration with Residents in Recovery. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So Tyler with Residents Recovery, he had approached me. We're trying to figure out exactly how we can best serve the community's most vulnerable, or those who are struggling with mental health and or addictions. And Tyler came up with this idea that we come together, and if for some reason if people aren't able to attend public places, right, well, people will more or less resort to Zoom or online means or through telephone. However, when it comes to populations that can't afford those means of technology, we have the option that they're able to come to the Drop-in Center here and connect to programming with Residents Recovery via Zoom. We think that it's a very great way that we're able to get around those barriers, where if people aren't able to attend in person, that people are still able to access that programming that, at any point people will want to access. So we want to be able to provide that if and when needed.
And is there any future plans in the work currently for the Drop-in Center?
Right now, we have a very bright future ahead. We're currently working on a community library. We have a online inventory. Currently, we have 680 books lined up into our current inventory, and we still have books on the daily being donated. And being able to have those resources around education, whether it's around self-help, whether it's around basic education such as English and math, we want that to be available to the community as well. So I think it's really huge that the fact that the community's been able to step up, not only with food and the clothing and just their overall support for the drop-in, but when it comes to the exterior additional needs such as education and resources, it's been wonderful. We're hoping to continue having programs such as the Zoom collaboration with Residents Recovery, And we're hoping to have more of that collaboration with the other agencies in town as well.
And if anyone is looking to help the Drop-In Centre, is there currently any donations that are needed at this time?
We're always looking for donations. I will say during the peak of the pandemic, when things were looking bleak, and I felt that it would be asking a lot for people, especially given the economy, given the pandemic, that it wouldn't be reasonable to reach out and ask the communities for support. But I did regardless, and requesting clothes and miscellaneous items as well as food, and the community just humbled us, and the community just stepped up in such a huge way where we almost, like, I had to actually take down the post requesting support because we were just overwhelmed with the amount of support. And we're looking at providing to other agencies as well. So I mean, continuous support such as that, as donations, and we also have volunteer opportunities if anybody wants to check out the Drop-In Centre and volunteer their time. And I think overall, just being able to understand what we're doing, which is meeting people where they're at, not having a judgment towards them, not having an agenda for them. And we find that approach, it really helps with the way that we connect with our clientele, and it helps with us being able to build that bridge and connect them with supports that they need.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Riley.
Thank you very much for having me, Jasmine.
Thank you, and best of luck.
Well, it's now time for this week's edition of Retrospect. Here's Blake Neath.
This week in Retrospect, we visit Field Day 95 and get a look at the latest ag tech.
This is how the day began. A trade fair of booths lined the hallway displaying the latest products, and company and product experts were on hand to answer any questions. Guest speaker Morgan Webb took to the stage to talk about seed quality and seed testing. Webb is an accredited seed analyst who has worked in research for the federal and provincial governments. He says producers are beginning to realize how important seed testing is.
It's important because it's a management tool that can give them a very good jump on their crop for the year. It gives them a bigger yield in the fall, and it'll help against any adverse conditions that might be in the field.
This field day was different than in the past. Producers in attendance were given a chance to tour the college fields and see full-scale demonstrations of new crop varieties and herbicides, making it possible to witness firsthand how the chemicals affect the crops.
And UFO 2000 takes place in St. Paul as strange visitors descend upon the town.
The town of St. Paul is known for its infamous UFO landing pad, but this weekend the pad will be more than a tourist attraction. It will be home to UFO 2000.
This is the beginning of new knowledge when you find that there's something going on, some phenomenon which can't be explained in terms of conventional phenomena.
The conference, which runs all weekend, is not focusing on the man on the moon or little green guys, but on issues ranging from abductions, crop circles, and cattle mutilation, with presenters from all over the world sharing their knowledge.
We bring in guest speakers from all over North America that are true investigators that deal with this stuff on a regular basis, that they can come and lay on the table any proof that they have that there are UFOs or there are not.
One major importance of these conferences is that the investigators themselves get to talk to each other and find out all the connections that you're not really aware of until you talk to various people.
And that's it for this week in Retrospect.
Retrospect this week is brought to you by Webb's Ford. Worth your while to drive the extra mile. Webb's Ford in Vermilion.
Stay with us, more primetime local news after this.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
Well, Border City Connects will be hosting the first ever Ribfest here in the city. I had the chance to find out more. Well, Glenn Fagnan, the Executive Director for Border City Connects, joins me today. Glenn, let's start off with just why do a Ribfest?
Well, it's the first one that's ever going to be held in Lloyd. I had seen them be previously in other centers, and just thought it's one of those great events that can really help the community out as far as economic development, and it's a great opportunity for our charity to have a long-term event for fundraising.
Was the idea of a Ribfest always in place even before the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, we started planning it earlier this year. I think probably it might have been in December actually, or January, is when we initially were speaking with Billy Bones Ribs. They're the guys that they're the ribbers that have 4 units that cook all these delicious meals. And so it as things changed with the COVID, they came up with this idea back in March or beginning of April about a drive-through to continue on with their circuit doing drive-throughs. So they're just getting going on it now.
What are some of the challenges that you may be faced with doing a drive-through method?
Well, I think that we're learning off. They already had their first run here on Canada Day, and on that they actually they were in a larger city in Ontario, about 200,000, but they put through 3,900 vehicles went through on that drive-through Ribfest. So that's pretty impressive, those numbers. So the key on that is certainly the distancing. They've got an operation where there's an order that's placed at a distance, and your order goes into the truck and then is delivered in a safe way when you get to the end of the runway there. So and then of course we're dealing with with washroom facilities. We're dealing with our volunteers needing to be properly spaced. We do have, speaking with the Sask Health, we do have their blessings for our initial platform for the drive-through. So we are basically, it's basically just like in Saskatchewan picking up food from a restaurant. It's going to follow that same protocol.
And just to correct me, all the money that is raised from Ribfest goes towards Border City Connects, correct?
Yeah, you bet. And just we have had a name change. So Border City Connects is actually formerly known as the Lloydminster Handy Van, which has been in the city for 40 years. And because we've changed our format and offer many more services, the Handy Van just wasn't fitting. So we're just trying to get that Border City Connects name out there. But we are the Lloydminster Handy Van Society as well, still.
And just for those that aren't familiar with the organization, just explain what Border City Connects does for the community.
Well, we've got we have the Handy Van where we're providing transportation for community members that are both physically or intellectually challenged. We have the Caravan where we take community members to Edmonton as well as Saskatoon for non-emergency medical appointments. We have a Trishaw, which is a new unit that we just purchased last year, and it's a tricycle that has a cabinet up front, and we're able to fit 2 adults in that, and we have a volunteer driver that will drive seniors or individuals in a certain area there just to get them out and get that air blowing through their hair. So we're doing a pioneer project right now, or a pioneer. We're doing a pilot project at the Pioneer Lodge. And lastly, we've just got something we just got it last week, and this is going to be a golf cart that has been donated to us through the Health Foundation, and we're going to be operating this as it's a cart that will allow individuals to golf that have mobility issues, and could be amputees, W amputees, but you can actually take this thing onto the golf court, hydraulic lift for the chair, and away you go, whether that's archery, golfing, many different things. So that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Well, that sounds awesome, Glenn. And just lastly, before we wrap things up here, how can people get more information, or where can they go to get tickets, and what are the dates of Ribfest?
It is August 21st, 2nd, and 3rd. And that's going to be from 11 till 9 on Friday and Saturday, and then 11 to 7 on Sunday. There's not going to be any tickets sold. We're going to be doing a lot of social media and a lot of advertising as we get closer. So it won't be difficult to find out. It's going to be basically on a first come first serve as we've got it planned here right now. But all those logistics are still coming into play. We haven't nailed down a location, but we've got a couple that we're looking at right now.
Well, Glenn, I really appreciate your time chatting with us today. And I know I'm a big foodie like myself, so I'm definitely going to have to check out Ribfest. It sounds like such a great time. So, Glenn, thank you very much for joining me.
Last week, the NHL announced their host cities for the NHL playoffs. Joining me today to talk about this is our Eric Bay. Eric, thanks for joining me.
Hey, glad to be here, and finally some kind of exciting news to look forward to here. It's getting closer to that return to play.
For sure, it for sure is getting close. And you mentioned return to play. The NHL and NHLPA are still agreeing on a return to play plan. But one thing that they have agreed on is the hub cities, Edmonton and Toronto. eBay, for us being Alberta guys and having Edmonton as the host city, how do you feel about this?
I mean, to be honest, the thing is, right, nobody's ever going to actually see the games the way we're looking at. So, I mean, yes, it is exciting. I think the main excitement, though, is the fact that we are kind of seeing this hockey getting closer to return. Now that we see, those steps move forward, it seems that every time we hear new news, at least we're getting a little bit closer to that return. So I think that's the excitement to it. Not so much the fact that the games will be played at Edmonton, because, again, it'll be us sitting on our couches watching on TV anyways. But again, it's great to hear, and it's exciting that it is Edmonton and Toronto.
Now, Eric, one thing that other people are bringing up is that they're not excited for Edmonton to be a host city, as they're going to be bringing in hundreds of extra people into a city and into a area that's already having COVID issues, and where COVID is prevalent. And there, what do you say about those people?
I mean, obviously that's an issue everywhere, right? And you look at what we're seeing, especially in the States. I think Canada is obviously the safest option. But for those concerned about, as you mentioned, hundreds of people being brought in, I mean, these guys are going to be the 100 most isolated people in the entire country, maybe in the entire continent. Like this will be the safest group of people coming in. They're going to be on their own, isolated. You're probably more at risk, as we've seen here recently, going out to the grocery store, or if you're going to eat at a restaurant, eating with social distancing in effect. I would say, in my opinion, that is just the fact, again, these guys are going to be isolated. They're not going to be out. They'll be with their own teams. So again, I don't really see a huge risk for the rest of the population in a city like Edmonton or Toronto bringing these guys in.
One thing that has been brought up about these hub cities is the possibility of home ice advantage. Eric, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that home ice advantage will be a prevalent issue during these NHL playoffs?
No, I mean, really, when you look at it, obviously they're probably going to separate Edmonton and Toronto from their home rinks. So I assume the East will be in Edmonton to start, and that is until those conference finals and the finals, which will be in Edmonton. So if Edmonton does make it that far, I don't really see that big a home ice advantage, just from the fact that you do look at it's mostly kind of a fan thing. Obviously, you feed off the energy of your home crowd, and also having that last change. So obviously that'll be switched up, and line matching will be as it usually is. And yes, maybe the conditions are slightly different, but this isn't like a baseball stadium where all the dimensions are different. It's still 200 by 85 feet. So I don't really see that big an issue with the home ice advantage coming up.
I agree with you completely, Eric, especially when you take those fans out of the game. The only real home ice advantage is maybe, and this is a stretch, maybe being used to the ice that you're playing on, right? The Oilers possibly could like Rogers Place ice more than, say a different team enjoys it. But I agree with you that this probably will not be a huge issue. Now, the NHL and NHLPA are discussing a new CBA that would last 6 years, and also being discussed in this is if the NHL players will be allowed to go to the Olympics in the next upcoming couple of Olympics. Eric, what are your thoughts on that? We will be possibly seeing the best hockey players back at the Olympics.
I mean, it's exciting. I think ever since the moment when the NHL announced that players wouldn't be going in 2018, this is what us as hockey fans have been hoping for since that moment, that the fact they would eventually return. And again, I think really the confusing thing was the mixed messages that the NHL was sending when you look at the fact how they do want to kind of grow the game into the expanded markets over there in Eastern Asia. So I really think that this is great, because we're looking at the next ones are going to be in Beijing. So again, you look at sending the best players over there, this will really grow the game, and we've already seen those preseason games, but this will just elevate it because obviously it's all-star teams from all the best hockey-producing countries in the world. So this will be great for not only the game, but again, for us as fans, selfishly, you obviously want to see the stars of the NHL that you grew up watching playing for your country. So it's going to be exciting for sure if they do end up back in the Olympics.
Yeah, and as a fan, I think we can all agree we would all love to see, McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon all be on a line there together. Eric, thank you for taking this time and joining us. We always appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Thanks for having me.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
I'm joined today with Marilyn Hoffman from the Frenchmans Museum. We're talking a little bit about just what people can expect when they go there. So Marilyn, can you just tell me a little bit about what people can expect?
Yes, the Frenchmans Museum Society is a museum that was started in 1979, and there are 7 buildings. We're working on the 8th and 9th at the moment, full of artifacts and ways of the pioneer days. And so we're busy, except for now this year, everything has slowed down due to the circumstances. We have a log tea house that we serve light lunches out of, and it's a great place to have a cup of tea and just for visiting.
And obviously, the Frenchmans Museum wasn't able to open as early as it normally does. Now that it's reopened, what are the hours like for people?
Okay, our hours are from 10 till 5 every day of the week until the long weekend in September. And we are following some COVID restrictions, like, we're hand sanitizing. We're only taking small groups in each group through the museum. We are a non-touch museum, so really once you've hand sanitized and then you do it again when you leave, everything is safe. Mm-hmm. And our tea house, we're distance sitting people if they so choose.
And have you had a lot of people coming out to enjoy what you guys have up to offer?
Not presently this year so far, but over the years we have about 2,100 visitors come to our museum to see it and to enjoy it and have fun. And so we're a little disappointed this year because we're here from 10 till 5 every day, and some days, we're not seeing any visitors at all, and we're sure hoping that it's going to pick up during the summer.
And I know that a lot of school groups come through usually kind of around the end of the school year, and that wasn't able to happen this year. So are you encouraging people to maybe bring their children out that wouldn't be able to go this year through their school?
Oh, for sure. Yes, and, we don't have the demonstrations every day here that we do in the school tours, but we have so many things that with our tour guide can explain to the children, and so there's just a lot of things for everybody. We have a mini golf course, and the children and families come and play there and have lots of fun. And we usually have about 600 people through in the month of June. So this year it felt like we were pretty empty.
And I understand that a lot of the things that are done at the museum are done through volunteers. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, our museum depends entirely on donations and volunteers. We have a great group that come in and to volunteer and operate our tea house here, and we also have a great community that will come in, and if we have a project on, we have great people around in our area that come in and help, like laying sod or anything like that. We have a great community for that. We are still short some volunteers for our tea house, and so if anybody's interested, they can sure give us a call, and we can explain how we operate here.
And for people who either want to just visit or they're interested in volunteering, what is the best way to get some more information or just contact the museum?
Well, you could call the museum at 306-344-4478, and they can direct you to me, and then we can go from there. I usually look after
you know, all the volunteers to get them started and whatever. So just call the museum number, and we'll look forward to getting you involved in our great facility out here.
Well, thanks for taking some time to talk with me today, Marilyn. And I know you haven't had a lot of people, but as things start to reopen and the summer begins, I hope that more people take some time to come in and enjoy what you guys have to offer at the Frenchmans Museum.
Yes, and you know, like there's a lot of people that don't realize that we are here in this small hamlet. It's about 45 minutes, 50 minutes northeast of Lloydminster. There's a lot of people don't know we're here, so please come out and see what we're all about. You will be really impressed when you get here.
All right, thank you so much, Marilyn.
Welcome back. Taking a look at your 7-day forecast quickly here. 25 degrees tomorrow, 19 degrees Wednesday, 24 Thursday, 23 Friday, 26 Saturday, 28 on Sunday, and 21 Monday. Tomorrow we could see possibility of some thunder showers, as well as on Wednesday close to maybe 20 millimeters of rain.